Tonight on the agenda.
Ultimately, what people need to realize is that being green isn't just something that you say. It has a tangible impact on your business. It has a tangible impact on your costs, on your risks.
Then, later on the agenda.
Master electricians all over Ontario are leading the charge in serving customers ready to transition off of fossil fuel dependency and prepare for some unpredictable climate scenarios.
Also tonight.
Jane Goodall is such a standalone example of this power of positivity.
Greenwashing is defined as deceptive advertising or marketing that claims a product is good for the environment when it really isn't. New federal legislation will attempt to clamp down on that, since it can be hard for consumers on their own to assess the claims of companies. Will the new law get the job done? Let's find out. In Gatineau, Quebec, we welcome Julien Beaulieu, competition lawyer and a lecturer at the Université de Sherbrooke. In the nation's capital, Keldon Bester, former special advisor at the Competition Bureau and executive director of CAMP. That's the Canadian Anti-Monopoly Project. And here in our studio, Tanya Yemitz, finance lawyer at the environmental law charity EcoJustice, and Phil DeLuna, who's a former sustainability expert at McKinsey & Company and chief carbon scientist at Deep Sky. That's a gigaton-scale carbon removal project developer. And it's great to have you two here in our studio. And to our friends in Points Beyond, thanks for joining us on TVO tonight. Keldon, going to put you to work first. How much confidence do you have in the current Competition Bureau's ability to reduce this phenomenon of greenwashing?
Well, it's an interesting period of time. We've had a couple of cases that have gone after a relatively narrow definition of greenwashing, but now we're seeing complaints, I'm sure we'll discuss more, that look at a broader definition, more about claims of overall business models or a brand entirely. So it's really uncharted waters, I think. There have been some successes in the past, but they've been fairly narrowly defined. So I'm interested to see how these broader claims do under our current law.
We will dive into all of this. Julien, how about you? How much confidence do you have in the Competition Bureau's ability to do something about this?
I think it's their job. It's clearly in their mandate. Of course, they have limited resources. So the Competition Bureau does a lot of things. They do mergers. They investigate cartels, so all sorts of deceptive practices. They're really a watchdog that has a lot to do. But if it's not them, then who is it going to be? They're the only agency, the only federal agency that can address greenwashing at a national level. They have experts. They have professional investigators. So we expect that they need to do it, because if they don't do it, then who else?
Okay, if not them, then who? Tanya, what do you think in terms of their ability to do this? Julien makes it sound like they got a lot on their plate already.
They do have a lot on their plate, but deceptive marketing is really important for, protecting consumers, making sure we have a fair playing field. And I think that if the federal government can really help the Competition Bureau out by, setting some laws and rules that they could then enforce, because that's what they do, and I think that they will do a great job of that.
Let me mix it up a bit with you here, Phil, which is, what do you think prompts companies to greenwash in the first place?
It's a great question. I think companies are starting to realize that sustainability is table stakes. A lot of people thought that it was going to be a passing fad. And if anything, since the pandemic, making sure that your business is sustainable has only increased in importance. And there is certainly a desire for some companies to show that they're doing something, and a temptation to take a shortcut, which is what greenwashing is. Becoming sustainable is very hard. It's costly, and it takes real work. And some folks want to reap the benefit without putting the work in.
But Tanya, presumably you do it because you think you will get away with it, right? Is that why they do it?
That could be a reason. You could get away with it. Another reason could be that there's not enough rules and guidance, and maybe some companies just need a little bit more help. And that's where the Competition Bureau could step up. They could issue some greenwashing guidance that really sets some examples. We see that in other jurisdictions.
Julien, is that right? I shouldn't necessarily be so nefarious in my interpretation here. Maybe they just don't know the rules well enough. Is that possible?
That's possible. That's certainly possible. A lot of them have good intents. They want to do good. They want to tap in these new green markets. They want to attract consumers that are interested in sustainable products, whatever that means. So yes, a lot of them want to do it well. And Tanya raises a very good point. There needs to be guidance out there. We heard a lot of companies who are, I've been doing some research on this topic for some time. And many times I heard companies saying, we want to do it well. We're interested in making genuine environmental claims. But what does green mean? If I want to say that I want to supply a green product, what does that mean? What's the bar? Which standards do I need to comply with? And that's really the challenge here. It's that there is legal uncertainty. The Bureau needs to step in and provide guidance. But of course, guidance is not everything. There's also needs to be some very concrete laws that can address this phenomenon.
Right. Well, let's find out what's going on at the moment. Keldon, I gather there have been 8 complaints of greenwashing filed at the Competition Bureau over the past couple of years. So members of Parliament want to amend the Competition Act to stop this practice of greenwashing. But so far, I'm told the details are rather sketchy. What are they saying at the moment?
Well, what's been put forward in Bill C-59 is really a clarification. Deceptive marketing practices cases have been brought against greenwashing successfully before, but what C-59 does is it clarifies that greenwashing specifically should be considered a deceptive act, and that strengthens the hand of the Bureau when it goes to court to say, there should be a objective test for this, and it's not being met on a product or service. But what's interesting is that recent complaints have said it's not the claim about a product, it's about the claim of a company or brand entirely. And that really is where the ambiguity is. There hasn't been a case litigated where the question is not the claim of a product, but really an entire company.
Keldon, what do you think in terms of, or forgive me, let me go to Tanya on this. What do you think in terms of C-59 and whether it's got the ability to get it done?
So C-59, the greenwashing provision, is a good first step, but it's just inadequate to address the breadth of greenwashing that we're seeing in the market. C-59 focuses only on product greenwashing, and the majority of greenwashing we see is about brands, is about corporations.
Much bigger than just a product.
Much bigger than just a product. And so that's where the government really needs to step in and look at the market and see what is happening and make laws that then address that need.
Phil, what do you say?
I couldn't agree more. We're seeing this happening, for example, in the United States. The Securities and Exchange Commission is releasing legislation and regulations that if you're a publicly traded company, you have to disclose your emissions. You can't manage what you don't measure. That's the step one of any strategy. And right now, the bill, while it is a good first step, there is so much uncertainty around what counts and the definition that it's far, far inadequate.
Well, Julien, you see a lot of this, so tell me, what are the most common inappropriate claims that companies that greenwash make?
So the most popular categories. And then beware when next time you go to the supermarket, you're going to see some of them, I'm sure. So one big category is the generic claims. Companies using words like green or sustainable, responsible. These words are generic. We don't really know what they mean, so it's very difficult to measure them. So that's one big category of greenwashing. Another big category is selective disclosures. So essentially firms, organizations disclosing certain information about one aspect of their environmental impacts, but not disclosing corresponding impacts. So let's say you're going to claim that you're net zero greenhouse gas emissions, but you're not going to say that to achieve this, you had to destroy biodiversity. You had to harm the environment in another way. So that's another way, selective disclosures. That's another very, very common one. Another very common form is just to say things that are false. So you're providing information that is not true, that is not based on science, that is not based on proper tests. Another category is also providing information that's just misleading. So you're going to say things that is theoretically not false, but that is not sufficiently comprehensive or clear to provide the full story.
Well, Tanya, I admit this next example I'm going to give might be a bit ridiculous, but I'm trying to get a better understanding of how, where the boundaries are on this. There's a popular soap brand called Irish Spring. Mm-hmm. If you look at the bar, it's green. Can they say, we're promoting a green product here? In fact, it is the color green if you look at it.
Now, I think you'd have to put that in context, right? It's the general impression of what a consumer gets. I think just showing a green soap would not be enough, or saying, we're promoting a green product. I think that you'd have to look at the interpretation of what green generally means to people. And, you know, I think you see this a lot in car advertisements where you see beautiful, you know, scenery and landscapes and maybe some choice words that are, like Julian said, very vague, very generic, but you're talking about a combustion vehicle, right? And I think that's where sort of the rubber hits the road a bit more.
So, Phil, just so, again, clarify everything here. If you are an automobile manufacturer and it's not an electric vehicle, it's an internal combustion engine, are there any circumstances within which you can say, this is given its class, a sustainable product or cares about the environment or something like that?
Yeah, it's a great question. We have to break down what the different scopes of emission are in order to answer that question. Scope 1, Scope 2, Scope 3. Scope 1 emissions are the emissions from producing that vehicle. It's the emissions on people actually making the car. Scope 2 emissions are the emissions from the electricity grid that produces that vehicle. So if you're producing an electric vehicle, you can't be 100% green if you're using a fossil fuel grid to power your plant. And then Scope 3 emissions are emissions that are indirectly associated, ways that, for example, if you're transporting that car elsewhere, the gas that gets combusted in that vehicle when it's being used. So the boundary with which you claim what is green or what is sustainable is very important. Could you say that, yes, our production is green? Well, if your production of your vehicle is on a renewable lot, you have solar on your roof and it's 100% renewable, you could technically claim that, but it would be misleading because the majority of the emissions come from the combustion of the gasoline when a consumer drives it.
Well, Keldon, yeah, let me get into this a little more because obviously this province is making a huge bet on electric vehicles, and I imagine we are going to see in the future a lot of advertisements that say these new EVs are fantastic for the environment because, of course, nothing comes out of the tailpipe. However, you know, if you tell the whole story, some of which Phil has just told, and in addition, these huge batteries in these EVs may be a little bit difficult to dispose of once the car's lifetime is over. How much can they push this narrative that these are, in fact, clean, green vehicles?
Well, I think the issue will really hinge on that word deception. You know, the Competition Bureau is not looking to be the arbiter of green claims. What it's really trying to reinforce is fair competition and, you know, faithful representations of what a product or a service represents. So what the Bureau will be focused on is the claims and the question of, you know, is there a test backing this up? Is there something we can point to say this is substantiated and it's responsible? That will necessarily involve some gray area cases. But the Bureau, I think, especially when it goes to truly investigate and then even more rare to litigate, it's looking for where there's a real act of deception going on and can pursue other means if it's more on the lines of a misunderstanding.
But Julian, how hard is it to prove deceptive intent?
So it can be very difficult. It's not necessarily something that's required under the. So to get into the details, there's two provisions. There's one provision in the Competition Act that's criminal, where you need to provide that you need to prove intent. But for the other provision, intent is not required. So as long as there's deception, then yeah, there might be a legal violation there. But it's still a difficult proof. The burden is not so easy to meet because you also need to prove that the general impression of the consumer was that this was green, or you need to prove what was the general impression that was given to the consumer, and you also need to prove that the characteristic that we're talking about was a material point. So was it material for the consumer when they bought, let's say, a recycled plastic bottle? Was it material, the recyclability feature? Was it a material feature of the product? So that's one big challenge. How do you prove that something is material? And how do you prove that the general impression that the consumer gets when they are being advertised a green product is, let's say, net zero emissions or no harm to biodiversity? So these things are not so easy to prove.
Right.
However, just sending a clear signal to the marketplace that there's going to be increasing scrutiny, establishing clear guidelines, clear standards, you're already sending a clear message here. Like, we don't need to get into the litigation and the proof and going before the tribunals. As soon as you have a strong signal, then companies are going to adapt and they're going to change their behavior accordingly. And then we're going to get green markets that work, because that's really the core issue here. It's green markets, having stakeholders that can choose according to their environmental preferences. But right now, that's not what we're seeing in the Canadian marketplace.
Well, Tanya, let me ask you about the signals that are being sent to the market, because your group, Eco-Justice, I mean, you're in the business of, well, I shouldn't say it, you should say it, but I presume you're in the business of suing people who don't adhere to the law.
Yes, Eco-Justice does use the power of the law. So we do legal challenges, litigation. Some of the complaints that were mentioned already today were brought by Eco-Justice to the Competition Bureau. And we also do law reform. So we work on both sides of the coin there.
Okay, I raised this because I gather there was a coffee company not too long ago that was being a little fast and loose with the facts about their single-use cups. And they claimed these cups were recyclable. Yeah. And I gather they weren't. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say.
Okay, and they got fined a couple of $1 million as a result.
That's right, yeah.
Now, would a fine of $2 million, which to those of us sitting around this literal and metaphorical table sounds like a lot of money, but to a massive multinational might not be that much, is that enough to deter bad behavior?
So I think the administrative penalty fines, even if they're low, can have an impact on companies, because surrounding that is media and public attention, and companies want to maintain a good reputation. They want to be seen as green, as you said, so they can compete in the market. And so while the administrative penalty might be a drop in the bucket for them, I think everything that comes around with it is also important. And hopefully the Competition Bureau, as they step into this role of deceptive marketing and greenwashing more and more, they can increase those fines. And there's different mechanisms that they can use, such as, importing a fine that's 3 times the amount of the benefit that the company got, which can then really add up.
But do they really do that?
We haven't seen it yet.
But hope springs eternal?
Hope springs eternal.
There we go. Phil, okay, we found out about Tanya's job. Your job is to help companies transition to a greener way of doing business. When you sit down with them, how do you advise them to do that?
Yeah, I mean, again, the first step is understanding what your emissions baseline are. That's the number one thing. There was a huge wave of companies that made net zero claims without really thinking about what that meant and defining what net zero actually is. So the second step is then setting interim targets and goals. There's an organization called the Science-Based Targets Initiative, SBTI. What they do is they help to validate private corporations and their claims and their goals towards net zero. A great step that a company can take is to go become SBTI certified, as another example. But then ultimately, it's the hard work. It's looking at your supply chain and understanding, can you do things better? Can you reduce waste? Can you implement new clean energies or new technologies? The way I think about sustainability and the way that I tell clients and customers, especially now at Deep Sky, sustainability isn't a sector or a fad or a thing onto itself, but rather it's a lens that the entire economy will have to come through. Just like how there was a digital transformation, we went from analog to digital. We are now experiencing that same economic movement, going from fossil-based economy to a sustainable one. And if you do not act now, you are at risk.
Well, let me do an example here, and you tell me whether or not a company could make the claim that it's being net zero if, for example, they have a factory and there's lots of CO2 emissions that go up the stack. But let's say they plant a lot of trees. Let's say they plant 1 million trees. And so on balance, the trees soak up that carbon dioxide and they claim they're net zero. Are they?
It's a really tough question. And it's $1 million question. I'll tell you why. They would like, of course, to say that they're net zero.
Right.
But the reality of the science is trees don't grow necessarily as fast as they are emitting. It takes 40 years for a tree to reach maturity. And over that time, when you plant a seedling, it's not removing 1,000 tons of CO2 per year already. It's a size and scale mismatch. So if a company is emitting CO2 from their flue stack, and they try to offset it with nature-based solutions, there's been increasing amount of scrutiny on looking at whether these actually do the carbon removals that they say they will. Another example, Canada last year had the largest the record in its history for forest fires. So even if you plant a tree, if a forest fire happens, that removal literally goes up in smoke. The CO2 that was removed will go back into the atmosphere. So there are issues with permanence, there's issues with additionality, with monitoring and verification. So if a large company is, an oil and gas company, for example, is saying that they're reducing all their emissions by planting trees, I would be very skeptical. You have to do technology-based solutions, which is what Deep Sky is doing, to really measure and match that scope.
Why is the company called Deep Sky?
Because we take carbon from the sky and we bury it deep underground.
There you go. Okay, Keldon, come in on this. We heard some solutions here for companies to ensure a green transition to getting carbon out of the way they do business. Give us some other solutions that are being looked at right now.
Well, I come at things from a competition perspective, so that's going to color my response. What the big part about deceptive marketing practices is rewarding and encouraging fair competition, which is to say that companies compete on the merits, and in this case, the merits of these environmental claims, which, as we saw in the Keurig case, consumers are taking, much more seriously. So again, what we push for is this notion of fair competition on the merits is one that encompasses a definition of environmental and sustainability goals, so that, as has been discussed, the companies that are putting the hard work in to actually be sustainable are rewarded, and that positive feedback loop, that competitive cycle, rewards those companies over those that might be either misleading or continuing on with unsustainable models.
Julian, can I get an example from you on, you don't have to name what the company is, but a kind of business that has decided to get serious about this, and compare that with somebody who's greenwashing?
That's a very good example. I think net zero targets are certainly an area where it's easier to compare companies, and the SBTI, the Science Based Targets Initiative, is one of these initiatives that aims to look at all companies with identical reporting frameworks, and then you can really compare across sectors, across companies, which ones are doing the most efforts and are really performing and reducing their emissions. So this type of framework where you can actually compare using the same numbers, that's fantastic. And Canada is moving ahead with these climate disclosures for companies. So the federal government said that they were looking into it, looking at asking private companies to disclose their carbon emissions following very specific standards. That would be amazing. However, that would only be for greenhouse gas emissions, and that wouldn't solve greenwashing in its entirety, because we also need indicators for what's recycled, what's nature positive product, pollution, all sorts of pollution, water pollution. We need indicators for all of these indicators, and we need reporting practices that are standardized across the industry, so that we can actually pick and choose. You're going to stay out of trouble, and Tanya won't sue you then and greenwashing complaint against your company.
We don't want to deprive you of your opportunity to sue somebody if you already want to, Tanya. But
You know what? The best thing would be if we didn't have to exist
there you
anymore.
go. There you go. Well, okay, while you've got the floor, let me ask you this. I'm going to take two letters from the expression greenwashing, and I'm going to change them, because I've heard of this other thing called green hushing. What's that?
Well, green hushing is when companies are afraid to talk about the green efforts that they're doing because of, litigation or complaints or bad media attention that could come up if, there's questions about what they are doing.
Is green hushing a problem, Phil?
It's interesting when we think about the political landscape, especially in places like the United States, where you actually have some Republican-controlled legislatures in the states suing companies for having sustainable practices. So the other side of the spectrum, your mortal enemy. But, I can understand why a company would be hesitant in either direction, either claiming that they're green or avoiding to claim that they're green, until more understanding, regulation, more of the guidelines and rules have been defined. But ultimately, what people need to realize is that being green isn't just something that you say. It has a tangible impact on your business. It has a tangible impact on your costs, on your risks. As an insurance company, there are insurance companies that are leaving entire jurisdictions. You can't get housing insurance in some states that are close to water anymore because of risk of flooding. And that's just the first. We have to think about agriculture and the food systems that are at risk. We have to think about manufacturing and supply chains that are global at risk as well. So yes, we can talk about consumer-facing goods and what's green and what's not, but ultimately businesses will do what's important for their business, and sustainability is an incredibly important factor for them today.
Keldon, I presume, and you've said this is a very complicated issue, and therefore, how do companies know if they're really being compliant with the rules doing it the way they should be doing it? How do they know?
Well, as it stands today, ahead of C-59 and even further proposed reforms, the real question is around this adequate test. Is the claim based on just a claim, or has the business related to a product or service undergone some sort of testing to see whether this claim actually holds up to some scrutiny? I mean, the part that is out of the control of the company in some ways is what was discussed earlier is this a material part of the business? Do consumers choose a product because of its ecological perception, regardless of what the company does? So what I think the company needs to focus on is, if we are making a claim, what do we have to back that up? Have we actually invested the time and resources, as opposed to, is this something we just stick on the package?
And just to be clear, there is ample evidence that consumers actually want to do the right thing. They want to buy green if it's really green, right?
Yeah, I think, take the Keurig case in particular. I think it's a material difference if a product is recyclable or going to a landfill. That clearly was the case there. And I think in everyday conversation, we frequently come across folks making decisions based on the environmental impact. And that's where the intersection with competition and competition law comes. When something about a product or service becomes something people care about, that is now something you can compete on. And I think, like other things like privacy protection, these things have really come to the fore in the past 10 years or so.
Mm-hmm. Julien, I always like to know who's doing this well. So can you point us to some other jurisdictions that are doing it well that we could learn from, and maybe give an example of what they've done that we ought to take note of?
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of examples, so that certainly we can certainly draw inspiration from a lot of jurisdictions. I would say Canada has not been at the forefront of this issue, unfortunately. Maybe we were ahead, like maybe 20 years ago. Unfortunately, others have caught up and have gone even beyond what we had in terms of legal framework. California is one jurisdiction that's ahead. They have something very interesting in their consumer protection law. When consumers make environmental claims, when companies do environmental claims, consumers have a right to request the materials that back these claims. So you can actually go to see the company and ask, hey, you said this was green. How come? Show me the materials. What do you have in the back office to prove this? So that's very interesting. We would love to see something similar in Canada, have this right to information. That would be very, very interesting. Europe has also been very aggressive on tackling greenwashing. They have prohibited certain words that are intrinsically misleading, like green or eco-friendly. They say these words should just never be used because they're always going to be misleading for consumers. And they've also required. They've set certain standards for private certification. So whenever a company wants to rely on a private environmental certification, it needs to meet a specific standard. France also has something interesting. They have a disclosure obligation. So whenever a company wants to say that a product is carbon neutral, they need to put a QR code on the product or a link to a website. And then you scan that at the supermarket. Again, you scan the product with your phone, you got the QR code, and it brings you to a page that shows how the company came to the conclusion that the product was carbon neutral. There's emissions accounting there. There's specific standards that companies need to comply with. So you really receive very comprehensive information. And that empowers consumers to make proper decisions and also report cases to the enforcer. So when you see this type of information, you can go to the Consumer Protection Agency and say, hey, this doesn't look very comprehensive, or it doesn't look super realistic. Maybe you should investigate this company because it doesn't seem to be making truthful claims. So they're really empowering stakeholders to take action and ensuring that they have all the right information. That's certainly something we don't have right now, but Bill C-59 is a great opportunity. If it was slightly expanded, it would be a great opportunity to get similar protection for.
So let's finish up on that then. Tanya, we've heard lots of examples there of others around the world who are putting a more muscular face on this policy. How hopeful are you that Canada will follow suit?
You know, I'm really hopeful. We see consumers really want to understand the products they're buying. We're at a point in time where we're, as a nation, as people, we're facing a climate crisis, we're facing environmental crisis at the same time, we're facing an affordability issues. And so where you spend your money is important, and where people spend their money to do to align with their ethical beliefs or, what they want to see for the future for their kids, for their planet. It's really important. So I think I'm hopeful that the government will recognize that, make changes to Bill C-59, like Julianne said, and then also take a few more steps, add some regulation like we are seeing in Europe that gives a bit more specificity, have the Competition Bureau do guidance like we've seen from many other regulators across the world. And I think that would be really helpful. So I'm hopeful. I always come into this with hope.
It's a good way to live.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Thank you, everybody, for this great discussion. I think we know a lot more about it now than we did half an hour ago. So mission accomplished. Keldon Bester, Tanya Niemetz, Phil DeLuna, Julien Beaulieu, merci à tous. À la prochaine.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Master electricians and energy software specialists are leading the charge on how we work with an aging energy grid as we transition to a carbon-free Ontario. Here's that story.
Remember back in 2009 when spray tans and tanning beds were all the rage? Well, so were solar panels. Especially after the Feed-in Tariff or FIT program was established in Ontario, incentivizing people to capture clean and renewable energy.
It was financially quite rewarding.
Homeowners got cash back from the provincial government for energy they fed back to the grid.
Everybody jumped in. All different companies jumped in. It was a big boom in the industry.
It was a green gold rush. Solar companies cropped up everywhere.
The microfit program allowed homeowners to get up to 80 cents back per kilowatt. That was a big difference compared to what we currently pay on average, about 10 cents per kilowatt. It developed a bad reputation, which had an unintended consequence of increasing other people's electricity bills.
Unplugging the Feed-in Tariff or FIT program.
It didn't slow down the solar industry, though.
Fast forward 15 years to net metering, and this is where we are now. Homeowners don't get cash back, but they do get credits, substantially reducing their energy bills each month.
It's a booming industry right now.
Master electricians all over Ontario are leading the charge in serving customers ready to transition off of fossil fuel dependency and prepare for some unpredictable climate scenarios.
They want to do something good for the environment. They'd like to save a little bit on their hydro bills. And the other thing is, they like to solve the problem of when the power goes out, how can they have resiliency?
Resiliency requires more players in the power game.
If we put the solar on the roof, when the power goes out, the solar will turn off and the house will be dark. It needs another piece. It needs a battery. Once you incorporate a battery into it, now the solar has somewhere to go. The battery will help to pick up when the power goes out. And you could actually, depending on the balance, have a situation where there is no power from the grid. The solar is charging the battery, discharging into the house, and you might have enough to keep yourself going for a day or two just on that, or just on the battery itself.
Imagine getting off the grid in the city, no need to live in a cabin out in the woods somewhere, though that would be nice too.
Adding these two things together is very powerful.
This is a representation of what's happening at this house under that net metering program. Mark's house, illustrated right here. This is powering Mark's home, but as you can see, it's not 100% of the power he needs, so he's pulling a little bit from the grid. We could pull a little bit of power from the battery, but right now it's standing by in case the grid goes down and we need that battery power to power the home.
Maybe at night, when we don't have solar, maybe the battery will pick up. Some of the energy that was made during the day could be discharged at night. And if the house had a lower requirement than my house does, maybe this would all just be enough. We wouldn't need much from the grid at all. And that would be very appealing. And ultimately, when you get your bill at the end of the month, this is reflected there. All the energy that you put back in is indicated, and at what time you put it in and what cost it was, and the other way around. And so that's a nice feeling to be able to have some payback, and also the environmental choice that you made is actually paying off, and you have something sort of in black and white to see that.
And the software that we use will actually predict your total amount of electricity over an entire year.
Enter Peak Power, a clean tech software company at the forefront of the energy transition, founded in Ontario. It believes that battery energy storage has the potential to transform the energy sector.
Our software addresses the need for solutions on the electricity grid to enable the decarbonization transition and provide solutions to climate change. So the way we do that is by allowing batteries, buildings, and electric vehicles to participate in the grid and provide grid services. And that enables our customers, who are large commercial and industrial sites, to save money on their energy bills at the same time as reducing GHG emissions and helping support the grid.
Different jurisdictions have different ways of managing those peak hours and incentivizing homeowners with pricing. Just like in Ontario, we know which hours are best to turn on and off the dishwasher or do the laundry, don't we?
The way it works in Ontario for very large energy users is there are basically 5 peak hours in the province, and some commercial and industrial buildings can see 2/3, even 3/4 of their energy bills for the entire year can be set in just those 5 hours. So that those 5 hours are usually hot summer weekdays when everybody in the province has their air conditioning turned up high. And it means all of our grid infrastructure has to be sized to meet the demand in those particular hours. And so by incentivizing customers to reduce their usage in those hours, it enables it reduces that, those moments that are most expensive, that put most strain on the grid, and that are also the times where we have the highest emissions, because that's when you turn on every power station that there is, including the old, less efficient ones. Predicting those 5 hours of when the grid demand is going to be highest is actually where we started as a company. That's our core expertise, because it relies extensively on all sorts of factors, including weather. So we have in-house meteorologists who are looking at weather patterns to identify when are those peak hours going to be. And that enables us to create a forecasting signal, which we use for operating the batteries that are in our own portfolio, and also that we can provide to others so that they know those are the hours to reduce demand as much as possible, to dispatch batteries, to use power from batteries instead of power from the grid, because those are the most expensive hours for a facility. I think what I'm looking forward to is seeing this transition. It's going to be a fascinating time. It's going to be the period of the fastest change that the utility sector has seen since utilities came into existence. And as policy changes, as regulations change, we're going to see the grid become, one word we like to use is democratized. So today, mostly the participants in our grid are large centralized power plants. Today, what Peak Power is doing is enabling large commercial and industrial buildings to participate, to save money, to make money, to provide services. And in not too long from now, individuals and residential customers, or anybody driving an electric vehicle, will have the opportunity to participate in the grid and help reduce the emissions of the grid, help improve the resiliency and reliability of their local grid, and generate money for providing those services.
Leading the charge and democratizing the energy grid, a transition to a green world.
Renowned primatologist Jane Goodall turns 90 this year. She's meant a lot to many people. 3 scientists discuss her legacy of hope.
Jane Goodall is such a standalone example of this power of positivity.
Jane Goodall's 90th birthday is April the 3rd. I'm only a year younger than Jane Goodall, and she has been an inspiration to me for my whole life.
Nothing is impossible. Main hope, the young people. They have a different outlook. They're beginning to understand. They're taught environmentalism from tiny ages.
I think she's inspired so many scientists, period, but especially women and girl scientists. I wasn't someone who grew up thinking I would be a wildlife biologist, in contrast to Jane Goodall, but I always cared so much about the environment. And so as I got older and became aware of Jane and her work, I have become more and more enamored with her and her past. That she had it in her mind as a kid to be a wildlife biologist and I didn't generations later is astounding. It really speaks to her as an individual and her ability to have this just amazing imagination for what was possible for her life. And yeah, I admire it a great deal, and that she's kept this passion alive and continued doing outreach throughout her life is a huge inspiration to me and my own work.
Giving hope, especially to youth. I think that's my main job now, because if we lose hope, and so many people have, then we may as well give up. And as I travel everywhere, I meet so many amazing people doing so many incredible things that I have to have hope that we can somehow get out of this mess.
Jane Goodall is such a standalone example of this power of positivity and the power of just being a fantastic role model, doing what you love with humanity and with intention, and that being passed on just by being yourself and doing good work. I think she's inspired so many scientists, period, but especially women and girl scientists for what they are capable of. It's really astounding and speaks to the importance of being hopeful and positive in your messaging.
If you don't inspire a 10-year-old to believe that they can make a difference, then you're failing in your communication. You must leave a sense of hope. You must leave a feeling that indeed something can be done if we work together.
One thing that I love to hear from my students, we debate lots of controversial conservation topics. They'll often tell me that they brought it home to their families and talked about it at dinner and got into an argument about it. And to me, that's just the, most impact I can have, that it goes beyond the classroom and becomes a discussion in real life that potentially would motivate positive change, or again, people to act as a collective toward some greater goal.
I have no time for negative thoughts, and any students that I've taught, we don't go there. That doesn't mean it's not there. It means that we've got to continue that positive way of thinking. But the problem is that right now it's in the wrong place.
Making change is going to be much harder if you don't feel like there's hope. You won't make a change if you think it's hopeless. You'll let it be. So somehow we want to communicate hope and urgency. This is important, and it's important now, but it's not hopeless.
Old white-haired guys like me don't just need to communicate the facts to decision makers and politicians, but the stories of hope, like Jane Goodall has been speaking about.
I have found so many avenues of inspiration in my own life. I have a career that's devoted to studying global change, which can be depressing, but I also interact every day with students who care very much about the future of the environment, future of the planet. I'm very, in my current moment, inspired by those stories, but also, coming up as a student myself, I had lots of teachers and professors who inspired me. Jane Goodall being a great example of just an incredibly inspirational scientist. One of the early women in field science, which, I did my PhD in the Brazilian Amazon, out in sort of the frontier of agriculture. So putting yourself out there as a young person in the field can be really scary, and have always been inspired by her bravery to do it, very much more alone than I was asked to do in my own work. But also she has brought a real humanity to biology and conservation that I also think is one way we can bring people to care. The fact that she named her chimps rather than calling them by a number, even those or showing how much she loved and cared about her study system, I think is a way we can bring a warmth to science, which can sometimes feel cold and quantitative, and also conservation as a discipline, in contrast to lots of fields of science, actually has an underpinning of ethics. You won't act on behalf of biodiversity unless you first agree that biodiversity is good. And so I think bringing that sort of like humanness of philosophy is also inspirational and something I want to pass on to my students. I really hope that we can all kind of come together about how much we love and care for the world all around us and act on behalf of the natural world. And in that frame, if there's not something going on in your community, start something. This is Jane Goodall again is a great example of this. Start an organization tied to Jane Goodall's larger umbrella organization. She has this Roots and Shoots organization that's encouraging local youth to get involved and form their own branches of organizations that do good for the environment. I love that idea. Just organize a cleanup at a park. People love to come out on a sunny day. They love to bring their kids and participate in both stewardship and community.
There's so much you can do. Every day you can do something. Don't think that the little things you do don't make a difference. They do, because it's not just you. It's a growing number of millions and millions of people around the globe who care, who do see problems with their eyes and feel them in their hearts, just like you do. And together we can make this a better world. Because for our children, grandchildren, and theirs, we must.
From housing affordability to mounting energy prices, it's no wonder there's a growing interest in off-grid and sustainable living. For the past decade, one Ontario couple has been inspiring others to do just that. Have a look. Nestled amongst farmland and forest near the coast of Lake Erie in Norfolk County sits one of the first Earth ships to have made contact in southern Ontario. The cosmic-looking structure has been home to Craig and Connie Cook and their 2 pets for the past decade.
This basically is our gray water system.
An Earth ship may look like something out of this world, but it actually has a lot to do with planet Earth. Earthship homes are self-sustaining, off-grid structures that channel renewable sources of energy like wind, water, and the sun to power them.
It does everything for itself. It heats itself, it cools itself, it collects all its own drinking water, takes care of its own black water, gray water, and generates its own electricity.
It's a ship. Takes care of itself like a ship on the ocean, only this is on the land. And it takes care of itself on the land so that you don't have to worry about anything else. You have to be attached to anything, and it's a really nice way to live.
Building their dream home took a lot of research, time, and salvaged tires. Earthship designs are synonymous with using recycled and natural materials. Discarded tires are used to build a retaining wall, which helps create a berm in the rear of the home.
You'll build it on undisturbed ground, and then the tire walls on the back are bermed up, so the dirt is piled up against the back wall. For the first few years, we were just using tires and dirt. So that was the tires. There's 1,200 tires in this house. There's about 400 pounds of dirt in each tire, and they're hand packed. There's no machine to do it. We did 2 tires and had to have a nap. We were done.
Inside, the interior walls are built using a combination of pop cans and concrete, while recycled bottles add a bit of color and intrigue. The Cooks also built an indoor garden that serves two purposes.
We have banana trees in the planter, and usually every year we get a bunch of bananas off there, and they're amazing. You have not had bananas until you've had bananas from an earthship. They are the best on the planet. We've had tomatoes growing in here. I've got cucumbers growing right now.
Besides growing plants, the indoor garden also filters and stores gray water, the water left over from washing hands, cooking, and laundry.
And what we did was we dug down below there a big round hole, and we filled it with some stones in there. And then the water comes to here, and then you just use an old-fashioned hand pump. And you can either water the plants with it, or you can take it outside and water plants with it. Or, like I said, I've used that to mix cement with.
Earthships were first developed by architect Michael Reynolds in New Mexico, USA in the 1970s. The main criteria for these self-sustaining homes are straightforward. Use natural and recycled materials, conserve energy, produce water, electricity, and food, and use construction techniques basic enough for the most novice of builders.
The more we read about it, the more convinced we were that this was the way to go. It was just, it ticked off all the environmental things that we liked about it, and just the independence of not having to be, connected to anything that could go away at some point, and then you're without hydro and you're without water and all that kind of stuff. And we never lived in town. We lived out in the country before we built this. But even there, we lost our hydro a lot. And, because you lived out in the country, they didn't bother coming to hook you back up because supposedly you could look after yourself.
The Cooks rely only on Mother Nature. When it comes to powering and heating their home, they depend solely on the sun. Solar panels provide the electricity, and since the walls of the home are made of packed earth and recycled materials, they have what's known as thermal mass, meaning they absorb, store, and release heat. Think of it as a battery. The entire southern side of the Earthship is made of glass, which is key to maximizing the amount of sunlight that enters the home.
The house is connected to the ground, so the ground is a constant temperature. So the heat comes in the windows, so it's only going to drop down a certain amount. It can't go below there. So the sun comes in the windows, it heats everything in the house. It heats the floor, it heats all the walls, and it comes in, and the heat literally travels through the house.
Every part of the Cooks' design accounts for the airflow that heats and cools their home.
We have a tremendous amount of airflow in here, and the humidity is a little bit higher. It's nice. It's nicer to have, especially in the winter, because people are always complaining about their houses being too dry. We have a lot of venting. The heat rises, vents out through the vents into the upstairs, and then travels as it cools. It comes back down the stairs. So you always have air moving through the house all the time. In the summertime, we open all the windows. We have windows upstairs. When we have the house all open, we have a big hairy dog, and there's hair just flying through the house from all the wind that's going through here.
To further increase airflow, the interior walls stop short of the ceiling.
We have no ceiling in the bathroom. A bathroom fan running for 1 hour will evacuate the total volume of your house. So you heated all the air in your house or cooled it, and it all left out that fan.
The Cooks' home is not connected to a municipal water line. Instead, Earthships are designed to catch and use water from the local environment.
Our water is rainwater, and it's already soft water, so we don't have to soften the water. We hold in that holding tank a year's worth of water for ourselves. So we need a decent rain once a year. That water comes in and goes through numerous filters before it gets used for a washing machine or shower, and then we have it go through a ceramic filter that is for our drinking water.
The Cooks estimate they use 23 liters of water a day. That figure is a drop in the bucket compared to the 420 liters of water that the average Toronto household of 2 used in 2020. One of the biggest reasons the Cooks' water consumption is so low is because the house doesn't need a black water system like traditional houses do.
Composting toilet. This gets us away from having to have a black water treatment outside, a septic system, and it uses no water at all.
Using the same building principles as the main house, Craig and Connie have built a chicken coop that provides eggs all year round, and most recently added a greenhouse.
Growing a whole lot of stuff. Like I say,
we have a massive garden out there that we grow a lot of stuff. It's amazing. People have these food costs. You know, I feel bad for them because they can't afford to eat decent food, and we eat decent food every day. So I like knowing where my food came from.
Craig and Connie estimate they've had over 5,000 people come through their homes over the years to learn about Earthships or just out of curiosity. Both have traveled to Earthship construction sites across North America to offer their expertise and help. Throughout their own building process, they were met with a lot of skepticism. And since the Earthship design was developed in New Mexico, there were a lot of questions about whether it could hold strong against a Canadian climate.
Lots of people said it will not work. And I'm thinking it has to work. We get energy coming in here even on an overcast day. Our solar is bringing in power. So there's still energy available there. Somebody asked us, what are you going to do if the sun doesn't shine? Well, that's the end of the world because there's still sun there. The sun came up every morning and will go down every night.
Connie and Craig retired from their jobs as school custodians to enjoy a life free from the grid. They estimate their Earthship cost them about $70,000 and a lot more in sweat equity.
I figure there's about $930,000 in labor. So it's a $1 million build. Everything was done by the two of us. The only thing we didn't do the floor and we didn't put the metal on the roof, but after we watched them do it, we could have done that.
The Cooks admit living in an Earthship is not for everyone, but it's a lifestyle they've embraced for over a decade, and they hope to keep inspiring others to get on board.
Tomorrow on the agenda.
Academics are all about learning, all about discovering new things, and curiosity is really the force that drives all of that. And so understanding that driving force, how it works, and how we can harness it is a big part of what we do.
That's tomorrow on the agenda.